Do you have a fear of choking? You're not alone. We're going to talk all about it. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist and I make videos to help people with anxiety or OCD. And today I want to talk to you about one of the top most common fears there is with anxiety, which is the fear of choking. It's a really super common one, and I can't believe I haven't made a video on this before. It actually is one of my anxiety themes. I got social anxiety and fear of choking are like my two number one anxiety themes. And so I get this on a personal and professional level, and I actually have one of my kids has a fear of choking as well. So the apple is not far from the genetic tree. So what do you do when you have a fear of choking? We're gonna get into it. Before I get started though, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified because I do make new videos every Thursday. So when you have a fear of choking, it's really what you do with that fear that is a bigger concern, because we all have a fear of choking. No one wants to choke, right? We all have a fear of a lot of things that are unsafe, but it's the actions that we take or the avoidance that we do when we have an anxiety like that that becomes the problem. And there are people that I've worked with in my practice who have gone to a complete liquid diet. It has gotten so bad. And we never want anyone to reduce their food intake or restrict themselves to the point where they're not eating, they're losing weight. And it can happen. It's a slippery slope. So you might think, well, I'm not that bad. But the problem is once you give in to the fear of choking and accommodate it, it starts to grow bigger. And so that's what we're going to focus on. So when people have a fear of choking, they do things, you may do things that you may not even realize that you're doing. And so you might overcut your food to tiny, tiny little pieces. You might over chew your food. That's the most common thing, right? And so you're chewing and chewing and chewing to make sure that it's really, really tiny before you do that. You might have safe food. So you might only eat a select amount of food that you feel is safe. And these are softer foods or foods that you don't think are choking hazards. The problem with that is a lot of times it grows, and your idea of what is safe and what is not safe to eat is not what the average person would believe. And in fact, like with my son, there are things that are completely soft, like a cracker that crumbles or something that dissolves very quickly, that his brain would still say he can't eat. And so it gets irrational pretty quickly once you get hooked in and start to listen to the anxiety and say, I'm going to take you very seriously and tell me all the many ways that I can avoid choking. The fact is, you can't avoid choking in general. You can take all these steps to be safe and it can still happen no matter what. Just like I can take all these steps to not fall and to watch where I'm going, and I can still trip and fall. Things happen that are out of our control. Anxiety and OCD want us to believe that we can control everything and anything. And so we live a life of control. I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'm going to guarantee that nothing bad's going to happen to me. Unfortunately, that's not how life works, whether you want to accept that or not. And so when we have a fear of choking, let's go back to the behaviors that we do. We wind up doing these actions to feel some sort of control. And the truth is, you don't really ultimately have that control. And so we talked about cutting your food, biting it in small pieces, avoiding food, and the restricting food becomes bigger and bigger. Sometimes people restrict so much that they eventually don't have anything they're really eating. Another one is they might spit out a lot of food that they think is too chewy, even if it's not legitimately chewy. They might ask people, does this look okay? They might check their food. There's all sorts of kind of safety behaviors. We call that safety behaviors in the therapy world that people do to make sure they're not going to choke. Another one that often gets missed is drinking a lot, right? So I take a bite and I have to drink a lot to get it down to make sure that it's safe. All of those behaviors kind of bow down to the anxiety and say, anxiety, you're real, you're helping me, you're protecting me, I'm going to follow all your rules. And your anxiety is hypersensitive and it's like, where's the problem? Oh, that might be a choking hazard. That might be a choking thing. That might be, and it's hypervigilant, which means it's overreactive. It's not helping you anymore because it's doing too much of its job and not calming down and being rational and really sensing danger where danger is at, which is minimal for choking, right? Yes, do things happen, but it's minimal. And so what first steps can you do when you're having a fear of choking? Well, one thing is you can be aware of all the behaviors and the avoidant behaviors that you're doing so that you can prevent choking, right? Because those are your safety behaviors. If you have OCD, those are your compulsions, right? And so those are the things you're going to want to slowly over time start to eliminate. And then what I did with my son is we wrote out a list and we kind of put food in 3 categories. The green category were safe foods, foods he felt comfortable eating. We wrote all of those down. The yellow foods were like, oh, they make me a little nervous, but I'll eat them. And so we wrote all those down. And the reds were like, I can't eat that. And you'd be surprised, for a lot of people, you would think there would be certain obvious foods in the red, but when this behavior gets really out of control, to talk about control, things that make no sense to other people are in the red. And so what we did with him is we started off with him eating green foods and not doing safety behaviors. So eating green foods without drinking a lot of water, eating green foods without over chewing, eating green foods without overcutting or spitting things out, right? So start with your safe foods and then move to your next step, which is working on eating a yellow food, not literally yellow, right? But your middle zone, right? Doesn't feel greatly safe, doesn't feel good, but it doesn't feel scary, right? It's in the middle. And so you can eat those. Maybe you're still doing all your safety behaviors, but you're eating those. And then over time, you slowly pick one safety behavior you're not going to do. Okay, I'm not going to over chew this. I'm going to work on that. Or I'm going to work on this next thing. And you start to eliminate those compulsions or safety behaviors that you're doing over time while you're eating your yellow foods. And you're turning those yellow foods over time to green foods because you are getting used to them. The cool thing that often happens is the foods in the red naturally start to move, some of them naturally start to move into the yellow column. And so you start to feel safer about eating foods that were once red. And so that list will morph and change as you do your work. The most important message I can give to you today, besides finding a therapist that can help you walk through this, is don't let anxiety, or if it's OCD, don't let OCD dominate where it tells you what to do. Because it will never be satisfied. It will always want more. So if you say, I'm going to just over chew and avoid these foods and I'll be fine, it will never be enough. It will always want more and more. Anxiety loves avoidance. And so it'll be like, avoid this food, avoid this food. And speaking from my own experience, my son was almost G-tube because he lost so much weight. He had ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, which is a fancy name for when this becomes a clinical acute problem where you're losing so much weight and you're not getting nutrition. And it's very easy to get to that point very quickly when you start giving in to anxiety or OCD. So what's one small little step you can do today to just push back a little bit? It doesn't have to be a big step, and say, I'm going to do this today that anxiety or OCD is not going to like. And so remember, small steps lead to big change over time. And I hope that you'll take one small step today. Don't forget to find the sparkle in everything you do. I do have a free webinar. If you're a parent watching this and you're raising an anxious kid, I do have a free webinar, 5 things that every parent raising a child with anxiety should know. And you can check that out at natashadaniels.com/anxiety webinar. If you have a child with OCD and you're watching this, I do have a free webinar for you because anxiety and OCD are very different. And you can check that out at natashadaniels.com/OCD webinar. I'll be back again on next Thursday with another video. Take care.